All right, everybody, I'm excited to get started, and I need you to do me a favor, okay? I just need everyone to stand up. Stand up. Okay, and we're going to jump right into things, okay? Now, if you're not able to jump, I want you to lift your hands. So we are either going to lift our hands or we are going to jump into things. Are you ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. That's right, we're going to jump right into things. And first we're going to talk about what we learned a little bit last week. And if you weren't able to be with us last week, that's okay. What we talked about was how maybe, have you ever heard of a time machine? You know, there's some superheroes that went back in time. There's a movie out where you jump into a phone booth. Maybe you saw on TV where a car goes 88 miles an hour and you can go back in time. Well, the reason that they went back in time was to change some choices that have been made. Now again, if you know somebody who has one and I can borrow it, please let me know. I would love to borrow it. I'll make sure I'll bring it back. I'll clean it and I'll make sure it smells good. I'll spray some of that good smelling stuff. And oh, by the way, Cousin Ray, I still need my PlayStation controller. Has anybody ever borrowed your game or your controller and then you don't have it back and then you go and try to play? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll get back to it. But what we were talking about was choices and how can we make those choices, and unfortunately we can't go back in time and change them. And so what I want us to talk about today is we're still going to learn about choices. How many of you chose what you're wearing today? Or you chose your shoes? These. No. We all can make choices, but one thing that we can choose is that when times are tough, we can choose to trust God. Now, how many of you have had something that's tough or hard? How many of you have gone through something? I know that I have, but we get to make a choice of whether we're going to trust God during that time, or we're going to be like when I try to show you my shoe and fall. Okay, so let's learn more about how we can choose to trust God even when times are tough. We're learning about all of this while we look in the Bible and we hear about prophets. Now last week we learned about a prophet by the name of Micah. And this week we're going to learn of a prophet named Zephaniah. Does any of you know somebody named Zephaniah? And Zephaniah is a book in the Bible. There's 66 books in the Bible, and it is in the Old Testament. Now, who here can tell me what is a prophet? A prophet is someone who heard from God. Someone who would get a download, get an instant message nowadays, get a comment from God saying, hey, this is what's going on. This is what the people are doing, and they really should correct what they're doing, because if they don't, this is going to happen. Or this is where you should go. This is what you should do. That is what a prophet was. And Zephaniah heard from God because, see, during the time that he was in, the people were worshiping idols. Now, does anybody know what an idol is? Well, an idol is anything like this. Anything that you put your trust and hope and everything in more than you put your trust and hope in God. I know this is an idol for a lot of people, especially a lot of adults like me. Now, some of you might not have a cell phone, but an idol can be something that we put way more important than God. Maybe it's your video game system. Maybe it's your sports team. Maybe it's your clothes and how you look. We can have a lot of different things that are idols to us. And what was happening is, if we look in Zephaniah, is that the people were worshiping idols. They were doing bad things. And it got to a point to where God was saying, hey, y'all, you need to stop doing this, okay? Because if you don't stop doing this, this is what's going to happen. And a lot of times we can hear warnings and be told that we're not supposed to do something, but yet we continue to do it. And what happens if we continue to do something? Well, you're gonna face the consequences. But what can we do? What can we do as we look at the choices that we make, that when times are tough, maybe when we're hearing some warnings, when we're seeing some things, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to run and hide? Oh no, it's tough and I don't know what to do. Is that what we're supposed to do? Or are we supposed to maybe stop and pause and listen and say, okay, God, what are you telling me? And what should I stop doing? And what should I do? See, we can learn that because God can help us through these tough times and things go on, that we can always hear from Him and we can always know what to do, but I'm guilty of it. I still do things that I know I'm not supposed to do because I think it's the right thing to do. I think that's what I want to do. And that's where we run into things. So let's look a little bit closer into Zephaniah as we talk about this. Okay, so I got my Bible, and I'm in Zephaniah, and what we were talking about is how Zephaniah was a prophet, remember? And how the people weren't doing what they were supposed to do. And because they weren't doing what they're supposed to do, God was telling them, hey, there was going to be darkness and troubled times and all kinds of things because we weren't doing what God was saying. Now, I don't know about you, but that would be a tough time. That would be things would be tough, and what can we do? But I want us to look into Zephaniah chapter 3, and I want us to look in 17, because I think that a lot of times we hear things and we're like, oh no, this is bad and this is that. But we serve a loving, great God. And listen to this, is that in verse 17, the Lord your God is in your midst. That means around you, a victorious warrior. He will exalt or lift you over with joy, and with His love you will be quiet and comforting. He will rejoice over you with shouts of joy. How many of you love it when someone sees you and you walk in the room and they're like, there you are, Emma, you're right there, Emma's here, hey, did you see Emma? Wait a minute, Everett, oh my man, yeah. Do you like hearing that shout of joy? Do you like hearing that? Well, that's the way that God comes to us and sees us, is that we have to understand that when times are tough and that when we're hearing things that we should do and correct, is that the best thing for us to do is to listen to that. It is to correct that way. It is to change those choices, because God is in our midst, just like it says, a victorious warrior. He will exalt over us. So let's look at how we make our choices, and even when times are tough, how we can choose to do the right thing because we serve such a loving and grateful God. You know, when we go through tough times, I admit it's hard, and I'm going through some tough times right now, but yet one thing that makes it so different is that when I stand there and I think, I'm Gabe and I got it all together and I can handle it, but yet when I can say, you know what? I don't know it all. I don't know what all to do. And God, I need you to help me. Holy Spirit, I want to listen to you. I want you to help me and guide me. As we've talked about before, the ways of a person are right in their own eyes, but God directs their steps. That's in Proverbs. So what I want you to do is I want you to do something with me. How many of you have ever heard of a friend or a sibling or a parent or whatever, and they were looking for a job? And if they were looking for a job, they'd get the newspaper out. But nowadays, they do this. And you pull up an app, and you say, okay, I want to be a football player. Let's see if anybody's hiring for a football player. And if they were hiring for a football player, they probably have a job description. And a job description lists what they're looking for. So it would probably say, if the Chiefs put out an ad and looking for someone to be a quarterback, they'd probably say someone who can throw the ball, okay? Someone who can run, someone who can read defenses, someone who can avoid a tackle. So if I looked up that wanted ad, I don't know if I can read defenses, and I can't really throw the ball, and I can't really avoid the tackle. Do you think I should apply for that job? Okay, one of you. Thank you. I appreciate it, my friend. Yeah, I'm not good at throwing the ball and doing all those. And the reason I bring that up is that I wouldn't be qualified for that job. I wouldn't be able to do that job because they are looking for specific things. So I want us to take a moment and I want to ask you, is if there was a wanted ad of someone who can choose to trust God when times are tough, what would it look like? What requirements would it say on there? Because like in football, can you throw the ball? Can you avoid a tackle? Can you read a defense? Well, tell me some of the qualities that it takes to be someone who can choose to follow God even when times are tough. Okay, so did you come up with some answers for the wanted ad and what somebody would look like who is really someone who can choose to follow God even when times are tough? And what are some of those? It was good to hear them, because what are some of those that maybe we can apply to our lives? I know I'm still working on the whole quarterback thing. Nobody seems to call me back, and even though I can't throw or read the defense, they don't want me to be on their team. But I want us to do something now, and I want us to look as we think about what we can do when times are tough and how we can choose to follow God and trust God. Is we're going to look in 1 Thessalonians. 1 Thessalonians is in the New Testament, and we're going to look in chapter 5. And I want to go over these verses. I'm going to come right back with you. So everyone say, are you ready? Okay. And say, here we go. Okay, here we go. 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 8. But since we are the day, let us be alert, having put on the breastplate of faith and love, and as a helmet the hope of salvation. For God has not destined us for trouble, but for obtaining salvation through Jesus Christ, who died for us, so that whether we are awake or asleep, we will live together with him. Verse 11. Therefore, encourage one another and build up one another, just as you also are doing. Now, why would we refer to that verse? Because one way that we can approach some hard times and tough times is, how can we know who we are and whose we are and who is there to help us? Because if we look and we go back and you look in verse 11, let's encourage one another and build up one another. And let us remember that, hey, our salvation is through Jesus Christ. It's not for us. And that we should have a protection of faith and love and salvation. See, I think when times get tough, we think that we can just go in there and do it ourselves and we got it, and yeah. But we don't stop and remember that we have faith and love, we have our salvation through Jesus, and that we can build each other up. So let me ask you a question. How many of you like Legos? And how many of you play with Legos? I love Legos. I have a big old box of them. I build everything. But Legos, the thing with Legos is they're connected. I could put one Lego here and one Lego here, and they're not going to do anything. But yet if I put one Lego here, one Lego here, one Lego here, and then I stack them on and I connect them, it gets stronger. And sometimes they're even hard to take apart because they're so connected. Well, in the same way, we want to be connected and we want to be strong. Just like the verse said, we want to encourage one another and build up one another. But we want to be connected with those who can lift us up and encourage us. And most importantly is we want to be connected to God. That's why it's so important that we pray. That's so important that we read God's word. That's so important that we worship, so that that can help us be connected to God, so that when times are tough, when there's things going on around us that we don't understand, that we can choose to trust in him. And that reminds me that we have our memory verse this month, and it's 1 Corinthians 16:13. 1 Corinthians 16:13. It says, be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong. Wow, if we can think about that, to be on guard, that a guard is looking around. And what are they? They're courageous. And well, courageous means they'll do brave things and to be strong. But yet, what's importantly is to be on guard, stand firm, be courageous. But does it say stand firm in what you know? Does it say stand firm in what your friend down the street told you? Does it say stand firm in what your friend told you over chat, playing the game? No, it says to stand firm in the faith. And just like what we were reading in the other verse, is that therefore we want to encourage one another, build up one another, and that we know that we have faith and love and salvation. See, that we're not doing it ourselves. So when I look at tough times, and when I look at things going on around me, how can I choose to trust in God? How can I choose to trust in God even when things are going bad around me? As I said earlier, is that I'm going through some tough times myself and things that I'm going through. And I'm realizing that I need to choose to trust God even when times are tough and I don't understand it. So I'll be honest with you, just this last week, I was on the news, and it wasn't for a good thing. See, my home caught on fire, and my back deck, part of the siding and wires and stuff, it caught on fire, and I ran out there and I saw it, and I'll be honest with you, it got me. I was really concerned. I had to make sure that we got my family out of the house, we got our little dog too, and everyone is safe and nobody was hurt. But it really got me, and it really got me thinking. It got me thinking, Gabe, what are you going to do? You now have a mess on your hands. You've got to deal with all this stuff. Or are you going to think, hey, you just got this, and boy, you helped save the day. I got a hose and tried to do it, and as much as I tried to do it, it didn't work. The fire department came out, 3 different trucks. They had to get the big hose, and they had to do that. And it's a reminder to me that I can try to do something, and I have my little hose that's just barely getting some water out and trying to put the fire out. But yet when the fire department came, they hooked up to the hydrant, they had the big hose, and they instantly put it out. It's the same way with trusting in God. When we go through troubles and we go through hard times, if we want to get our hose out and we think we can do it, we might think that we can. And I thought I was putting the fire out, but I wasn't. It was still going. It was so big and I couldn't control it. But yet when the fire department came, they were able to put it out. And that's the same way with us trusting God. Is that when we can trust in God and know that, just like we talked about with our verse, about how we can depend on Him, how we can stand firm in our faith, be strong and courageous, is that it's not stand firm and be strong in what we can do in my little hose trying to put something out, but it's standing firm knowing that God is the one who can put that fire out. Now, I'm thankful. Everybody's safe. There's nothing bad. We're going to be okay. But it's a good reminder that when things are going tough, that we can choose to follow God.